18. Let's begin the bulletin with some news from the SCO. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who's on a two-day visit to Uzbekistan to attend the 22nd Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, reached Samarkand last evening. He will be sharing stage with leaders of 7 nations, including Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping. While a bilateral with Putin is on the PM's packed agenda, suspense continues on whether he will hold talks with Xi on the sidelines of the summit. With Russia, China and Iran, the summit is increasingly taking an anti-West stance, and therein lies India's challenge, a balancing act ahead of departing for the summit. Prime Minister said a number of decisions for mutual cooperation in the areas of trade, economy, culture and tourism are likely to be taken at the meet. Now, CNN News 18's managing editor Zaka Jacob spoke to a panel of guests on India's presence in SCO. Let's listen in.
The question is, how does India balance being part of such a forum, and yet we are so invested in our relationship with the United States, we are part of the Quad. How does India balance both these ends?
No, I think the fact India's position being completely independent of our bilateral relations with both the US, Russia, China, and all of them. Our presence in SCO, as Ambassador Prakash said, only is reassuring to the Western countries that this does not become a kind of an anti-US, anti-West grouping. And India, I think, has actually brought some moderation and also a sense of balance to all these bodies, whichever multilateral body that we are a part of. I think India's presence actually makes it quite independent of any grouping in of whether Russia or the China grouping or the US. Certainly, I think India's presence in all these groups also enables us to protect and promote our national interest. You see, what is foremost to us and perhaps to any country is to work all the levers of your foreign policy to work to its national advantage. And I think we have been attending the SCO meetings has certainly given us that additional leverage. And I don't think there should be anyone insecure about India's participation in whether it is in the Quad grouping or in the SCO.
Okay, let me ask General Prasad, do you see some kind of a bilateral meeting between Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi on the sidelines of the SCO? And really, do you see the relationship overall between India and China coming back to any sense of normalcy until disengagement happens in all places?
Saka, first of all, let me say that this disengagement is important, but it is not really path-breaking. It is not something that we can say as a major achievement between India and China relationship. The standing policy of India, which has been enunciated by our foreign minister more than once, that unless this tension on the border is removed, unless the border issue is resolved, relationship cannot be normal. Yeah. We cannot just do economic activity without having to solve the border issue. Today, the important things are 2 and 3, which you've been talking about ever since the program started. Where does India stand today? India stands today at a very simple, straightforward position which the entire world has recognized. We were non-aligned at one point in time. Today we are multi-aligned. Today we have a flexible alignment. the whole concept of SCO seems to have undergone a change. We were earlier talking about the terrorism and things. With the Ukraine war, with the power centers emerging, with the East versus the West coming up, there are clear-cut positions where India today stands amongst all the 8 countries attending at the biggest advantage, and I would say.
Okay.
Today, our geostrategic location, geographically, our position as an economic power, emerging economic power, gives us a leverage to see that the Chinese come to table to negotiate with us more on economic front, in the bargain resolving the border issues. So these are two linked. The point that needs to be made in the SCO conference is this, that India is an emerging economy. If Chinese have to improve their economy and to be sustaining as a world economic leader, India is an important part of it. And therefore, the India can only become an important part if you resolve the border issue to our satisfaction, which basically at the moment means removal from the Dipsang plain and Demchok.
And if I can ask Ambassador Prakash about this, Prime Minister did tweet a few days ago expressing his condolences about the floods in Pakistan. There was some initial proposal to, I think, export wheat to Pakistan in a limited measure, again as a humanitarian gesture. But do you see any sort of formal traction in the relationship? It's been pretty much in the deep freezer, if you will. We don't even have ambassadors in both countries for the last couple of years at least. Do you see any kind of forward movement in the India-Pakistan bilateral relationship at the SCO?
Zaka, not at all. You know, the ball is absolutely in the Pakistani court. Yes, they are facing a calamity. We have expressed our sorrow. We have expressed our sympathy. If they were to seek India's assistance, I'm sure India will be more than happy to provide it. But this is one country which cuts the nose to spite its own face. If in this hour of need where people are having difficulties, they are still discussing whether or not to import vegetables from India, you can see the kind of dysfunctional setup that obtains today. The situation in Pakistan is quite grim. Prime Minister Sharif is not in a position to deliver. His position is shaky. We have always been an initiator of a dialogue. We want a dialogue, but today they are just not in a position to commit anything. Why should we increase the standing of Sharif by giving him a meeting? For what? Okay. So I don't think the situation is ripe at all for a meeting. And similarly, when it comes to Xi Jinping, there can today be only one agenda, and that is to vacate the aggression. For that, you cannot see Prime Minister meeting with the President, because he is not going to negotiate. Their leaders are not going to negotiate. And Xi Jinping is not a person who is given to gestures.